we've been spending a lot of time trying to attach meaning to the operations we're doing with integers and how to order them. We do want to become more fluent with our ability to add our integers so that we can do this quickly and on demand. Alright, so here we're going to go through just a whole bunch of examples. I'm not going to do every problem. The rest of them will be for you to complete on your own. Alright, so let's look at a couple here. So sometimes you will see negative numbers written with parentheses around them. That's just the design of some worksheet makers that like to keep them separated for you, but either way is fine. So when I look at -7, we've got a plus, another -7. So you might look at this two ways. You might be able to readily say, we've got two negatives, we're combining them, it's going to get more negative, so that's going to be equal to -14. You can think about the signs that we were making. There's 7 negative signs and 7 more negative signs. That's great. Some people also might choose to say, that's -7. Adding a negative is really like taking away 7 more. So we owed $7. Now we owe somebody else $7. So in total, we owe a total of $14. However you look at it, the answer is -14 for this example. On this example, we have 15 plus signs, 15 minus signs, so they all cancel each other out, and we are left with 0. Now you could choose to rewrite this double sign. When you have a plus, a minus, you're adding something bad. Well, that's like taking away something. So 15 minus 15, well, of course, that's 0 as well. I've known that for years. Okay, so let's look at just a few others here. Let's look at an example where we have a positive number, but we're adding something more negative to it, like in number 8. So if we have 5 and we're adding -14, so there's 5 positives, 14 negatives. So we're going to be left with 9 more negative signs surviving, so that will be a -9. You can rewrite this to be 5 minus 14, if that helps you. If you do that, I often say circle the sign in front. So no sign is assumed to be positive. We've written numbers as positives for years without it writing any sign in front of them. But here, the sign in front of the 14 is negative, so that's a -14. So 14 negative little signs there. Let's go ahead and try a problem like number 21. We've got both numbers here are negative, so we can really think of this as 31 negatives and 29 more negatives, and that's going to be a total of 60 negatives. Or you owed $31, you owe 29 more dollars, now you owe a grand total of $60. Okay, so while the numbers are getting a little bit bigger, the same concepts should be applying to all of these. Even when a problem like 28 might seem a little bit tricky at first, but if you really think about plus a negative is really just subtraction, this problem turns into a problem that we could have done years ago. So taking away 26 from 71, so we get 65, and then 20 to less, so we get 45. Okay, now what happens if we have to add multiple integers together? So you can purely follow the order of operations, which tells you that if you have all of the same kind of operation, addition, you go from left to right. However, because if you're careful, you can choose to do this in more sensible ways. So I might choose to go ahead and say, well, let me combine all my negative signs first. So I've got a total of 14 negatives, and I've got 1 positive. So 1 positive, and I can either add 14 negatives, or I could write that as 1 minus 14. Either way, those are all equivalent. We've kind of combined the positives, combined the negatives, and then at the end we can determine that this is -13. So that works if the negatives are next to each other, but let's find one where the negatives are not necessarily next to each other. So if we look at number 6, we have a negative number at front and a negative number at the end. We can still combine those. So we have a -1 and a -2, so that's a total of -3. And we're adding 1 to that. So now we've ordered that around differently. And we could even change the order of those by making that 1 minus 3. So I know you can't change the order of subtraction, but if you do actually carry the sign that's in front with you, then you can really move things around in any order you want. As long as the 3 stays negative, it can move over here, and the 1 stays positive. You could rewrite that. Either way, you have -2. Now, you could have gone straight from left to right in this problem, and that also has some sense to it. Because you have a -1 and a +1, that would combine to 0. And some of you might have liked to do that right away, that 0 and then -2 to get yourself -2 as well. Many different ways to get to the correct answer. Okay, let's look at, I think number 10 is mostly straightforward. We've got all negatives here. We've got 6 negatives, 6 more negatives, 5 more negatives. So if you like to do it in stages, we have -12 and then 5 more negatives to give us a total of -17. If we take a look at, trying to find one, okay, like number 16. Number 16, we have positives. in two places. So we've got positive 2 and positive 9, so we've got 11, and we are taking away 20, or adding negative 20, and that is going to give us negative 9. So even though the numbers are getting bigger, really you can have a couple of different strategies. Either you're combining all of the same signs first and then combining them together, or you're going in order from left to right, or if you see the opportunity to cancel something out, you can do that as well. I might even choose to employ some canceling on a problem like number 22. If I've got negative 28 and positive 18, I like that I can cancel some of the 8s out here. So negative 28 plus 18, I might say, oh, that's negative 10 between them. And then negative 10 and negative 75 is easy for me to combine to get negative 85. So employ whatever tricks you want to help make your problem solving a little bit faster. On this next sheet, we ask a couple things. First, to evaluate which sign is greater. And remember, of course, the alligator eats the bigger thing. So we have a negative 7 and a negative 3. You're used to 7 being bigger, but when they're negative, the negative 3 is a bigger number than negative 7. You can kind of think, we were talking about in the previous lesson about negative numbers, their value is opposite of their absolute value. So the absolute value of 7 is bigger than the absolute value of 3, but negative 7 is less than negative 3. Okay, we also want to spend some time putting them in order from least to greatest. The same thing applies. Negative 101 would be our smallest here. Then we would find negative 52, then negative 37, and then negative 34, then 0, and then positive 53. Great. All right, so now we see a number of other types of problems. Most of these should be straightforward, like number 10. Notice here there's a little subtraction sign up high. Again, it's a different worksheet maker that likes to make their negative signs smaller and kind of up at the top there, but we can still say, okay, we have 25 negatives, we have 17 negatives, so we have negative 42 negatives. Okay, but those problems are not all that new. We've had some practice with those on past worksheets. But let's look at some of the new situations that we see come up here, like a problem like 14. Here we've got absolute value lines in the middle of a problem. So we have to do absolute values kind of like the way we do the order of operations. We would do parentheses first. So we're going to do this first. So we go inside and we're going to take the absolute value of negative 63. And the absolute value of negative 63 is positive 63. And so we're going to take positive 63 and we're going to add negative 5. Or 63 minus 5 to give us 58. Okay, if we look at 15, there's other weird things are happening. We've got a negative number in parentheses and a negative outside. So we can think about this as being, this is negative 15, and this symbol out here means the opposite of negative 15. And the opposite of negative 15 is positive 15. So if we've got 30 plus 15, we've just got 45. Great. Okay, numbers 16, 17, 18, fairly straightforward, but what about 19? Now we've got two numbers inside the absolute value. So just like parentheses, in the order of operations, we go inside first, and we're going to take negative 40 and add it to 7. So a problem we've done before, 40 negatives, 7 positives, so that's 33 negatives surviving. But we've still got these absolute value bars on the outside. So we did the stuff inside, but we still have to apply the absolute values. We kind of work from the inside out. So when we take the absolute value of negative 33, we get positive 33. Now notice how 19 looks different than 20. In 19, both numbers are together inside of one set of absolute value bars, versus in 20, each number has their own set of absolute value bars. So we're going to do one set of absolute values, then the other, and then we can combine them. So the absolute value of negative 26 is positive 26. The absolute value of 22 is still 22. It stays positive. It's its distance from 0. So we're going to add those together. 26 plus 22 gives us 48. Great. 21 is another new type that we haven't quite seen yet. Inside parentheses, we've got two things, and we're going to combine those integers first, and then we can deal with outside of parentheses. So inside we've got negative 57, positive 8. So the 8 plus signs cancel out 8 of the negative signs, but we're still left with 49 negative signs. But that's still in parentheses with another negative outside. So it's negative 49, but we're taking the opposite of negative 49. So the opposite of negative 49 is 49. Great. with that, we can really handle most of these problems, but just in case it's a little bit different, let's look at 27, where we've got, we actually did a problem like 27. 15 was kind of like that, so that's more of the same. You'll see these kind of repeating on and on. There's lots and lots and lots and lots of practice of these problems. Oh look, there's another page with more practice of these problems. So we have lots of practice problems that we can attempt in practicing this. It's definitely an important skill and something that over and over repetition will help us all get a little bit better at.